Yeah, and I know you cover this in a lot more depth with your sort of. I think you do a monthly forecast, don't you, of what's coming ahead? But
Mhm.
yes, do you have anything kind of any big predictions for what's kind of coming up in the next few years? Maybe not any disasters, if that's going to bring in an ethical element, but any sort of general predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I just did an episode in terms of mundane predictions in November with my friend Nick Diggin Best, where we talked about this thing that pretty much all astrologers have been talking about for quite a while now, based on a historical observation about the planet Uranus. That, um, and it's more of like an American phenomenon, but it's just an observation that in history, the planet Uranus was in the sign of Gemini during pretty much the entire period of the American Revolutionary War. So that the United States was founded with Uranus in the sign of Gemini, or in other words, in a specific spot in the sky. And then Uranus is on an 84-year orbit. So it takes about 84 years to do a complete cycle around the zodiac and come back to where it started. And then when that happened, 84 years later, approximately, Uranus went back into Gemini for 6 or 7 years, because it spends 6 or 7 years in each sign of the zodiac. When Uranus returned to that sign from when the country was founded, almost perfectly aligns with the period of the Civil War in American history. So it was this hugely, again, tumultuous period in which the United States was involved in like a massive war, and there was a sense of like real conflict. So then, 84 years after that, Uranus does another cycle all the way around the zodiac, and it comes back to where it started. And very closely, it came back to where it started in 1941, for again about 7 years, which then roughly coincided with the US involvement with World War II. All of a sudden, being involved in another massive war and a massive turning point in terms of US history, and in terms of what the US was before World War II versus what it was after that point. So astrologers have long noticed that correlation because it's pretty just like striking looking at it in history. But the other part of that is that it's almost been 84 years again. So that transit is actually due to come up again in 2025. And Uranus is going to go into Gemini in 2025. And it's going to stay there, I think, until about 2032 or 2033. So, that's one of those instances where, again, we're just looking back at past correlations between celestial movements and earthly events, starting to draw data that there's been a similar correlation of major wars. Two of them were external wars, and one of them was an internal war, a civil war, but nonetheless, they've been major conflicts. And so, by extension, we could kind of expect that there would be another major defining conflict that would take place between 2025 and 2032 that would be on the level of World War II, the Civil War, and the American Revolutionary War. So that's one of the most interesting, although startling and like not super happy observations that I've been tracking in terms of mundane astrology recently. But it's one that we'll find out pretty soon over the course of the next decade if that correlation holds up and continues to be true.